Oh hi, Dave Rome here. If you're hearing this, then you're on the free feed of the Escape Collective podcast network. We're happy you're here, and we'll continue to give plenty of expert opinion and analysis away for free. But really, our best stuff is saved for members of Escape Collective. After all, with no advertising or affiliate links, it's our members who make this all possible. From in-depth interviews with leading experts, to class-leading reviews, through to unique things like my threaded series for anyone spinning spanners of any level. That's the sort of content you'll get by becoming a member. And as an added bonus, you won't have to listen to ads like this again. Head to escapecollective.com/join to sign up. Hello and welcome to a special episode of the Geek Warning podcast. It's been a long time coming, and finally, Shimano has released the electronic version of its XTR, the flagship mountain bike group in the Japanese company's range. It signals a few firsts for Shimano, including the company's first true wireless rear derailleur, a new brake fluid, and some incredibly lightweight wheels. And as we've seen in the past, it's these advancements at the top end that almost always trickle down and move into other cycling categories. And while I'm sworn to secrecy, I will tease that such trickle down will happen faster than you may think. Joining me for this episode, my colleague, Alex Hunt. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I think you missed out a couple of longs in your intro. I think you only said 4 and 7 would have been more fitting.
7 would have been more fitting. Yeah, to one for each year that we haven't seen new XTR. But anyway, to learn more about this, what's new, what isn't, what took so damn long, and some of the finer technical details, we do have a special guest. Welcome to Nick Murdick, Shimano North America's MTB product manager. Hello, Nick.
Hello.
Before we go any further, it's worth mentioning that our podcast remains wholly and solely funded by members of Escape Collective. While at times it may sound a bit like it, this actually isn't branded or sponsored content, and rather exists wholly to inform and hopefully entertain our members. As per usual, those on the free feed of the podcast will get access to a portion of this podcast, but you will need to be a member for all the geeky goodness. We'll cut you off at some point. Also, it's worth mentioning that this podcast isn't a review of the new XTR. Rather, it's an interview. If you'd like to see the product, hear more about how it rides, where it's good, its limitations, and even how it compares to its direct competitors, then head on over to escapecollective.com for the full write-up, where both I and Alex will share our thoughts on it. All right, let's get started. Welcome, Nick Murdick. You're Shimano's North America MTB product manager.
That is correct.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
What do you do with Shimano? What does that title mean?
It means everything. That's why it's vague. So it's product development. My career in the bike industry was as a bike mechanic for a long time. So this was always like dream job to graduate if I was ever going to stop traveling and being a race mechanic, get in on the product development side. So that's an exciting part of it for sure. I cover all categories that are flat handlebars and bumpy tires. So e-bikes and tourney to XTR, the whole range. But it's a lot of planning out the components for the market, like what fits in, what can our factory make, like looking at the big business perspective and making presentations to OEM customers, all the rest of Shimano's team. For simplicity, we can call it like a product development role though.
Okay. All right. So you've this XTR project, what we're going to be talking about today, new XTR Di2 M9200. How many years of your time have you been staring at sheets of this and developing this?
Depends on what version of the project. I mean, the last XTR group came out about 7 years ago, and we had been working on an electronic version of it for a couple years before that. Kept working on it for a couple years. after that even, and the plan was to have a 9150 XTR group. But our system was fully wired with a battery inside the frame. And once it became clear that the market was going in a different direction, we needed to kind of start over a little bit. And that really started in earnest 5 years ago, but it was a tricky landscape to navigate. And so, I mean, 7 years is a long time for an XTR group for sure. A lot of that had to do with just navigating patents related to making a wireless electronic system.
Interesting. So yeah, I mean that is a question on my run sheet is, you know, why it took so long. And I think you sort of just hinted at that what, 5 years ago you made a conscious pivot that a wired system wasn't going to be enough for the market. Is that behind the reason for what's taken 7 years between group sets here?
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't even that long ago. We didn't think that we were going to be able to navigate that one for quite a while. And just, I don't know, 3 years ago for sure, I was having conversations with product managers at bike brands and telling them that it doesn't look like it's going to be possible to put a battery inside a derailleur. So there needs to be a wire somewhere. Like, where would you like us to put the battery? Oh. And so those were the conversations we were having not that long ago. And then we finally had a breakthrough and were able to pull it off.
Yeah, wow. Okay. All right. So that does explain a lot. I mean, there's other products in the lineup, like there's wheels that we're going to talk about. There's new brakes. What was the reason for just holding it all back for one release? Like, I guess Shimano over the years has trickled out bits and pieces here and there. Like, why not release the new brake early versus... Yeah, basically tradition. I'm not sure that we would do that one again, to tell you the truth. Okay.
Like, that brake is sweet, and I wish people could have been riding it at least last year. It gave us a little bit of extra time, which was nice. I think that we're ending up with a little bit better brake than what we would have been able to release a year or two ago.
Okay.
So that's a good thing. But yeah, I think that's just been Shimano tradition, is that you work on an entire group and then release like a whole new platform together.
Sure. One big release. Okay. Well, yeah. With all that, I think we've teased plenty.
Yeah.
So what is this new product? What are you releasing? What's out?
Yeah.
What are the big new things?
I imagine everybody has seen plenty online, but wireless XTR Di2 group. That's kind of the obvious thing, and but a really robust system as well. That was the other thing that was a pretty clear demand from the market, and really, I think the problem with the first generation 12-speed groups that came on the market, like just in general, is that when things went to 12-speed, they became too fragile for the way that mountain biking was continuing to evolve. People riding their bikes harder, and derailleurs that were working really, really precisely. If they took a relatively small hit, it would have a big impact on your quality of life as a mountain biker, right? Like, you just get bummed out too easily.
Yeah.
So robustness really is like a new focus of the system, and not just being strong, but being smart about surviving the kinds of impacts that we experience out on the trail. And so there's a bit there, not just with the derailleur design, but with the crank design. And the enduro wheels too, for sure. Like, anytime we had an opportunity to like double check and make sure that this could keep up with somebody like Richie Rude, who's pushing his bike harder than anybody else, like, needs to be able to stand up to that. That's our metric. But the other like big story is with kind of rider interface and ergonomics. So great ergonomics in the shifter, in the brake lever, and then that kind of relates to the consistency and the power delivery of the brakes as well. So that's kind of the most exciting stuff in a nutshell, like, without going into more detail, which I assume we're gonna.
Yeah, no, we'll get there. We'll get there. So yeah, I guess XTR, Shimano's top end flagship group set of what's it? Almost 2 decades now that it's out at the top.
1991 was when the first XTR group came out.
There you go, 3 decades.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's been a while, and continues to sit in that top spot. But I'd say it also forms the basis of where we see tech trickle down from. So it's certainly one to keep an eye on in that regard. But one of the things that XTR has done for a few generations now is sort of have a split across mountain bike disciplines. So there's the cross country, and then there's the trail enduro parts. Can you explain sort of the reasoning behind that?
Yeah,
and where the differences are?
When we started doing that with the 980 generation, which was a couple generations ago, and in the beginning, it was just kind of like cross-country racers are almost always just looking for components to be as light as possible, but people are pushing their bikes harder. So there was like a race group and a trail group. And as enduro racing became a thing and people were actually racing on the kind of components that we put on the bikes that everybody else rides, right? That gave us the opportunity to kind of turn that trail group into an enduro group. But I would kind of say that this is the first time that we've got two race dedicated groups where XTR Enduro is built for enduro racing and not just a light version of XT, which is kind of what the XTR Trail group had been in the past.
Yeah.
So in some cases, some of the XTR parts are even heavier than they've been before. Like we're taking a weight penalty in order to make things more durable.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So I guess most of the parts are shared between the two, but then you got like different cranks, different brakes, different wheels. Is there anything else that sort of separates the two? Pedals.
There is a new cross-country pedal. The trail pedal is not getting refreshed just yet.
Okay.
We're of course always working on new product, blah blah blah.
Sure.
So stay tuned on that one. It'll be a while, but I think that when it comes to like the drivetrain, it's hard to say that any one spec is best for cross-country racing or enduro racing. We've made a short cage derailleur for the previous generation. Actually, we've made a bunch of different short cage derailleurs. And back in the triple days, the 950 XTR group had a short cage derailleur that just was a derailleur that didn't have enough capacity to shift across your entire gear range. So the chain would droop if you were in the small chain ring in the smallest half of the cassette. But that like basic idea of a short cage derailleur is a good thing for professional racers. That really kind of it came into its own with the 1045 spec of the current group. And now that evolving into a 945 option where it's lighter, doesn't have a sacrifice in range, and gives you the short derailleur cage. It's appealing to both cross-country racers and enduro racers, but we're kind of leaving those final choices up to the racers. That really is, and thankfully, like our sports marketing team has embraced that concept. Like we wanted to put together a menu for racers to be able to choose whatever is best for their bike. So we've seen like 95% of World Cup enduro racers using the short cage derailleur. I basically expect that to push to like 100 now that it's a 945. But there might be a couple cases where somebody still feels like the long cage derailleur with 1051 cassette's best for them. For cross-country racing, I think you have to weigh the weight reduction of the short cage derailleur and much lighter cassette versus driving efficiency of the chain being wrapped around bigger gears. I think it's really hard to tell the difference between the two. They're just playing some frame compatibility options too, or not options, obstructions. That's the word I was looking for. So like if you're running...
Is that 9-tooth?
It could be 9-tooth and it could be in combination with a smaller chain ring. For the most part, pros don't need to run small chain rings. And so that like compatibility issue, like they're just minimum chain ring sizes on some bikes out there. And so if you like the way that they sell bikes is with a 32 tooth chain ring and a 1051 or 1050 or 1052 cassette, right? Like that's the common bike spec. So we're sort of suggesting that if you run the 945 cassette that you're going to have a 28 tooth chain ring up front, and that doesn't fit on every bike. And it could be because of a chainstay protector, but it could also be because that bike has an O chain or a third party power meter. But like I said, I don't really expect that to be much of an issue for pros. It's kind of just, hey, here's both of them. This is what we know about them. We're kind of framing that choice just like I just did to you. And you guys get to decide.
Yeah, you've mentioned the pros quite a lot in that section. How much involvement was there from the Shimano sponsored athletes in the development of the new XTR?
Quite a bit. And there was it was kind of a coincidence, a happy accident, I guess, that back in 2021, Mr. Shimano, our esteemed leader, told us that he didn't like that this new e-bike enduro category was not something that we were competitive in, and like we having developed that e-bike drive unit, we were kind of proud of that, right? That like, well, it's not made for racing, it's meant for mountain biking, it's meant for like natural power delivery, and it shouldn't be the fastest. But he told us to go out and win a race, and so thankfully we were successful with that, right? Like winning a bunch of stages, bunch of races in the overall last year, which of course was the last year of e-bike enduro racing. And I know that that's not something that people really care about. But it was a great opportunity to go work with athletes directly. Like that project took me away from my desk and put me traveling the World Cup circuit for all of 2022 and 2023, when we were really working on the XTR group. And I wasn't just hanging out at e-bike races with 25 people in them. Like they were happening at EWS first and then Enduro World Cups. And there's a lot of crossover there. So I got to hang out with downhill and cross country racers at World Cups a lot as well. Typically the way that we would go do race development is we'd bring like our product managers from Japan and Europe and some engineers out to races, and everybody walks around with their notebook and asks questions. But it's like, we can do that on Friday, right? Because it can't be that long of a trip. And on Friday at a World Cup, you get to talk to team managers and mechanics, like the racers are busy. But traveling full time as part of the World Cup circuit and doing these like 6-week pulls over in Europe meant that we were there on setup day and could have a lot more like casual conversations and interact with the riders a lot more. So I was hanging out underneath the Yeti tent, but kind of wearing two hats as both staff of that Yeti Shimano e-bike racing team, which is kind of combined. They run them together with their regular enduro team, but then being able to walk the pits and sometimes head across the venue and go talk to the cross-country racers or downhill racers as well.
So the athletes are definitely like informing the product in that sense. Like it sounds like they're intertwined pretty closely.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's how I can tell you so confidently that like 95% of the Enduro World Cup racers are using the short cage derailleur, and even see how that conversation goes. It's even like a rule for that Yeti team that their development riders, they get put on the short cage derailleur straight away. And like, that's the directive from the boss is that, you're going to run the short cage derailleur because like your legs on a transition stage versus your derailleur surviving an Enduro World Cup. Like your derailleur surviving is the more important thing. So from a young age, like get used to it. And like everybody else does it, like it's not that hard to climb in a 34-45 on liaison stages. Gotcha. Yeah. And I mean, the Yeti examples are easy to tell and at the top of my mind. And Richie was such a, strong rider last year, winning the overall, that like that, we made that crank for him. Like it's not officially called it or anything, but that's the Richie Rude spec crank.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, we'll get into what that is, but I guess just that short cage derailleur that we're talking about. I think Shimano's calling it micro drive, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know that we have like an official marketing term. I've been calling it the compact drivetrain. That's
okay.
I'm sure that we've written that down in the press release, something like that.
Okay. All right. Smaller drivetrain. So it's I think it saves about 70 grams when you account for the shorter cage, smaller cassette, the less chain, the smaller chainring. Mountain bikes are often optimized, like the suspension kinematics often optimized around a certain chainring size ish these days.
Yeah.
Has that been a discussion you've had with some product managers?
Yeah. And so for sure, that's part of the reason for keeping the long cage option around. If that's an obstacle, then for sure, there's still another option. Some product managers were pretty adamant that like, no, we can't spec the bike with a 28 tooth chainring. Like that's not going to work out for our suspension design. But that was a lot less common than I expected it to be. I had a lot more product managers saying that, I think that if you took the Pepsi challenge and went out and tried them both, like you wouldn't be able to tell a difference. And that's not, it wasn't necessarily related to suspension design either. Like, wasn't related to single pivot or linkage bikes or anything like that. Like it kind of was all over the place. And for sure it was worth doing though, because like I said, the pros don't use smaller chain rings, so they're not getting that suspension kinematic effect. And then with high pivot bikes, we don't have any effect on suspension kinematics coming from the chainring size. And then same thing if the bike is running in O-chain type device or some other kind of pedal kickback reduction device. So there definitely were enough use cases where, and I think that like, let's provide a menu and let people decide what's best for them. That really applies to every mountain biker as well. That and it kind of is the smarter business tactic to have a single spec. And that was really what more of the pushback from OEM product managers was about. It's like, you're confusing people if you are putting something different on the sales floor of the bike shop. But if it can lead to better performance, we feel like it's worth it. And if people decide that it's right for them, then great, we've got an option for you.
Oh, hi. If you're hearing this abrupt tone change, then you've hit the end of the free episode. Yes, there is plenty more for our members, and we get into all sorts of things, including what's new in the brakes, why I changed the fluid, what's new in the wheels, and some more intricate details as well. But you will need to be on the member feed of the Escape Collective Podcast Network in order to hear all that. So, if you're not already, head to escapecollective.com/join. Sign up and get access to everything we do at Escape Collective, including all of our member-exclusive podcasts, all of our content, and so much more. All right. Hope you get to hear the rest of this soon.
This episode was produced, edited, and mixed by Will Jones at Red Bricks Media.